Welcome to our seminar on Introduction to AUXPAD. Tonight, we're going to be kind of covering the waterfront. We're going to be talking about AUXPAD Ashore, AUXPAD Afloat. We're not really drilling down in a lot of depth on any of these things, but giving a good overview, I think, of all the different aspects of the program and how you can learn more if you want to do that. Our presenters are, in addition to myself, I'm the Division Chief for paddlecraft safety. I'm on the Outer Banks of North Carolina, Kill Devil Hills. I'm a level 3 kayak instructor. I've really got into a whole instructor thing as a result of AUXPAD, and it's been a great experience getting to know some other people in the paddling community. Some of the other instructor trainers and getting into things that I probably wouldn't have done before. We also have Joey Taguding, who's the branch chief for AUXPAD Ashore. He's here in Northern Virginia and has done wonderful things training a group of people on the Potomac. We've really got a hotbed of AUXPAD going with the District of Columbia and Northern Virginia, and they're doing great things both ashore and on the water, and then kind of on the weekends when they're not doing patrols, they're off having cookouts and just having a good time. We have also Todd Wilkinson from 8 Western Rivers. Todd's working in a little different setting than we are. We're coastal kayakers here on the East Coast, and he's on the inland waters, and so he's got a little different take on kind of the kinds of conditions and risks that people are dealing with in inland waters. So our agenda tonight is, I'm going to spend a little bit of time just introducing AUXPAD, talk a little bit about the data, what kind of risks we're seeing with paddlecraft, a little bit about the mission of our program, a little bit about who we are in the program and our partnerships with the ACA and other organizations. Then Joey's going to talk about AUXPAD Ashore. Some of the things we do are vessel safety checks, public education, and other kinds of community outreach. Todd's going to take us on the water with AUXPAD Afloat, talk about the difference between river and coastal kayaking, explain some of the training programs that we have for people that are going on the water, and our partnerships with the ACA. And then we'll have 10 or 15 minutes for discussion at the end. We try to keep it to an hour. We run over a little bit, that's okay. So just to give you a real 30,000-foot look at kind of the safety challenge, a lot of people don't realize that about 40% of recreational boaters are paddlers, and about 20% of the recreational boating deaths are paddlecraft related. And when you think about it, kayaks, canoes, and SUPs are very likely to have capsizes. People are likely to end up in the water, and especially for that group, it's particularly important for them to be wearing their life jackets. So that's really a primary focus of the program, as it is across the board with recreational boating safety, but especially for paddlecraft is a focus on life jackets. From 2010 to 2021, deaths increased significantly for kayakers from 52 to 96, and from 0 to 18 for stand-up paddleboards. And really what that reflects is just the increase in participation in those sports. In general, I think the auxiliary's been doing a great job of outreach with recreational boating safety, but these are two areas where we have increases in deaths, and it's really related to more people on the water. A lot of people don't realize that kayaks and stand-up paddleboards are vessels subject to the federal and state laws. In general, the auxiliary is focused on powered craft. A lot of our vessel examiners are really not familiar with paddlecraft and kind of don't know what to look for when they're doing vessel exams for paddlecraft. So part of our our goal here is to make guys I was talking about at the beginning, our presenters, Joey, myself, and Todd. This is our agenda, and it's advancing now. Here's some of the data that I was walking you through. And so when we talk about recreational boaters, that's really our target audience. A lot of the people that get into trouble, they tend not to be the people that are highly skilled in whitewater or coastal kayaking. They tend to be people that are starting out, and they don't have boater education, largely because it's not required, as it generally is for people in powered boats. And there's generally no licensing for paddlecraft. People don't need a license to go on the water in paddlecraft. Most people don't seek training, and some people almost think of these as pool toys or something that are not serious craft. There's no minimum age, and in my experience, very few people are wearing life jackets, and that's something that we really need to focus on. Some of the key issues, and I think this is quite common when people start getting on the water in paddlecraft. They really are kind of hungry for information on what's the best kayak or stand-up paddleboard to buy, what kind of equipment should they have. And for the most part, they don't have good information. They're going into a store that may not have any expertise on that and buying it maybe from from a Walmart or a store that doesn't really have anybody that knows that line of business. People need to be able to match their skills to conditions, and they may not have very much skills. They may not recognize the conditions that are going to get them into trouble. Communications is a big issue. When you get on the water in a group, it's very easy to get separated and not hear people in the other craft. It gets noisy out there. Planning is a problem. A lot of people don't file a float plan. They don't check the weather. They don't think, where can I bail out if things go sideways? And another important area is conflict with other boaters, just kind of keeping our paddlers out of the channel and having other boaters be aware of paddlecraft. So the AUXPAD mission, there's 3 primary missions, and this is our new handbook that just came out in January. The first is to promote life jacket wear in compliance with safety equipment that's required by the federal government. And that's directly related to those drownings and capsizes we talked about earlier. Another goal is promoting paddlecraft education and skills. And frankly, this has not been a strength for the Coast Guard Auxiliary or the Coast Guard. And the American Canoe Association really is a very powerful partner there. And so we've turned to them. We're using their curriculum to train our people. Our AUXPAD qualifiers are ACA instructors. And finally, another goal is to create opportunities for our auxiliaries to develop and apply their paddling skills. And so when we go on patrol, we're building our own skill, we're getting visibility on the water, and we're becoming better ambassadors to the paddling public. Here on the right, we have our approved AUXPAD shirt and hat. Those are approved both for on the water and ashore activities. And I think it's a great uniform that is kind of very good for reaching out to paddlers. It looks like something that you might expect a paddler to wear. Our partnership with the ACA is quite strong. They've got committees that basically develop curriculum for all the different kayaking disciplines. They're the governing body for the competitive sports in the Olympics for paddlecraft. Robin Pope is our Deputy Director for Recreational Boating Safety Outreach, and he's got 30 years of experience with the ACA. He was until recently, the president of the ACA's board of directors. He's a level 5 instructor, trainer, educator, so he's teaching the educators who are teaching the instructors. And he's doing that for both river kayaking and swift water. So that's been a really strong connection that's helped us with the ACA. And the ACA's got excellent resources for online classes, good website, and a lot of community activities. So I'm going to turn it over to Joey to talk about AUXPAD Ashore.
Hello, everyone. My name's Joey Taguding. I live in Flotilla 2506, Occoquan, Fairfax, Virginia. It's located near Northern Virginia, Mount Vernon area. If you're ever in the DC area, stop by. Maybe we'll go paddling sometime. I've been paddling since 2014. I've been with the AUXPAD program since about 2016. As Roland mentioned, I'm an AUXPAD qualifier and therefore a level 2 ACA instructor. I'm currently the branch chief. Following Roland's encouragement, I'm now the branch chief of paddlecraft safety ashore. He's always pulling me out of my comfort level, and I'm enjoying what I'm doing. So thank you, Roland. Tonight, you can see on the slide, we're going to talk about the ashore component of AUXPAD. And as you can see on the slide, it focuses on public affairs things such as vessel safety checks and public education, program visitation, community partnerships. And then a little later in the slide deck, we'll talk a little bit about the resources that are available for AUXPAD, both AUXPAD operators and for those embracing the AUXPAD Ashore program. Some of the presentation decks we have, the practice standards and talking points. Next slide, please. Biggest tool in our toolbox under this whole public outreach in paddling safety, paddlecraft safety, is of course vessel safety checks. Form 7012A is a great checklist for all the required and recommended equipment. And the national staff, we are close to completing and publishing an official guide, official presentation on how to perform a paddlecraft specific vessel safety check. Mike Maloney, Mark Morositz gave a how-to presentation a couple of Wednesdays ago, I believe. And I think that is posted now on our national website for your viewing. So if you get the time, want to go through that and review it, it is now available. It's a great PowerPoint presentation. It takes you step by step on how to do a paddlecraft vessel safety check. Some of the key things that it talks about, of course, is wearing your life jacket, taking a boating safety course so that you know what power boaters should be doing, filing your float plan, about knowing your boat, your skill sets, and the venue that you're actually going to be paddling. It's how to make yourself more visible by wearing bright colors, gaudy colors. I wear bright orange whether I'm with the auxiliary or whether I'm just paddling private. My wife always wants to distance herself because I'm in bright chartreuse, bright yellow, or bright orange. The most important thing about the vessel safety check, though, it's just not about tick marks on a piece of paper. It's all about having a conversation with the paddling public. You want to be able to look at folks that you're doing this vessel safety check and have a conversation about what their skill sets are, what the venue is that they're going, and what the proper equipment that they should be carrying on their vessel. That's the most important thing about that piece of paper and the conversation. Next slide, please. The other tool in our toolbox is, of course, public affairs. Vessel safety checks, you have to be a vessel examiner to be able to perform those vessel safety checks. Public affairs, practically anyone in the auxiliary can embrace public affairs. That means going out and setting up a table or a booth. Some of the common places would be piers, docks, kayak launches, kayak rental places. And some of the informal places which I like to advocate is your 4th of July picnic, or your neighborhood gathering, or your annual night out. Here in my area where I live, there's a neighborhood that just had their canal dredged out. And so they've started an annual water appreciation festival. And they invite me each year. And I go out there. We do a little bit of paddling. We do a little bit of vessel safety checks. We do a little bit of discussions. So anybody can do a public affairs event. One of the things that we're embracing is the use of the QR codes on the screen. And this is courtesy of Larry Messenger down in Panama City. They're using QR codes. He hands out little business cards, which sends the viewer to his website and talks about paddlecraft safety. Now, if you're not familiar with QR codes, your QR code can point to your flotilla website, your schedule of vessel safety checks, your schedule of public training, public education classes. One of the other things that you could recommend when you do a public affair event is have a whole sheet of QR codes. So all the person has to do is point, click, and shoot, and they get to bring up the different websites that I just mentioned. So that's something to start using, to embrace, and to use at all the public affairs events. Next slide, please, Roland. All right. Mr. Maloney, you're on deck. This is Mr. Maloney, Mike Maloney, 1st District, Southern Maine. Mike, you can speak up and tell me if I'm saying anything wrong about yourself, sir. But he's in Flotilla 2-1 in Casco Bay. He takes public affair activities and events to an entirely new level. And what I mean by that is the bottom right-hand picture. You see Mike here, he's on TV. He's doing a public service announcement about wearing your life jackets, wearing your wetsuits, and about hypothermia. I'll just take a quick breather and just let everybody remember what the 1-10-1 cold water survival rule of thumb is. The 1 minute is to control your breathing. The 10 minutes is for self-rescue and fine motor skills. And then the 1 hour is to get yourself together, get out of the wet clothing, get into some dry clothing, try to get something a little warm to drink so that you don't become unconscious due to hypothermia. Now, that's his TV public service announcement. In the upper left-hand corner, Mike is a radio personality. He's a radio god with the local station up there. He's been on the radio station so often that the Coast Guard station in that area listened to him on the radio and said, "Hey," they called him up and said, "Hey, Mike, where are you getting the budget to do all these radio commercials and broadcasts?" And Mike Maloney had to remind the Coast Guard station that the radio station is offering these PSA movements or broadcasts free of charge. So if you can, this is a way to do some additional public affairs. Mike, you want to comment further on any of this?
Yeah, just there's a lot of opportunities for us to reach the public. And, getting on the radio, getting on the TV, you can literally reach tens of thousands of people. And if you do it at the right time of year, for us right now, we're heading into the really dangerous season because the air temperature is starting to get really nice, but the water temperature is still dangerously cold. So getting that message out there right now is a crucial time to deliver it. And there's nothing like broadcast media to get a message out to tens of thousands of people quickly.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike. Bravo, guy. Next slide, please. The other tool in our toolbox is, of course, public education. As you can see on the slide, the national staff has been working on this Paddler's Guide to Safety, new and improved. It's been better organized. The PowerPoint slides are structured so that the organizational flow is much improved. There are better graphics and pictures, and there includes discussions about not just kayaks, but kayak fishing, stand-up paddles, canoes. It's from my earlier conversation before we came online, it sounds like it's just getting ready to release from the e-directorate at this point in time. Would you like to say a little bit more about that, Roland?
I guess if Nan Ellen's got anything to share, I could let her talk about it. I just found out about a half an hour ago myself.
Exactly.
I just found out about an hour ago, but I've got Dave here with me. He's let me bring him in. Since he's with the E-Directorate, he can tell you the status.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dave Fuller. I'm the Director of Education, the E-Directorate Director. We've been really paddling through this thing for a long time, and thanks to Roland and all the team that's been working on it, and also Robin, their expert input, we were able to finally put this together. We've been now through the 4th version, and you know, they say sometimes the 3rd time's the charm. Well, for us, it was the 4th time. So literally, we got the word on to go on it like 30 minutes ago. So give us a couple of days. We'll have it posted on the website, and you know, you can go download it and start using it. We're going to put up 2 versions of it. The full-size PowerPoint file is around 36, 37 megabytes in size, so it's a little bit too big to email, and so you'll have to go and download it. We also have a reduced file size version, which kind of is like a JPEG, kind of compressed, and it's not as good of graphics and so forth, but it's still usable and you can still see it. And that's something you could share, you know, by email if you wanted to. But give us a couple of days, we'll get it posted, and then, you know, feel free to use it. Please, 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 please give us your feedback. That's the only way we can make it better, is for you to tell us either A, it works, or B, it works, but, or it really, really is bad. You know, let us know, give us some specifics. We need your input to make it better. And, you know, our directorate is, one of our goals is continuous improvement as things move on. You know, the original Paddler Guide to Safety was put together back in 2015, and a whole lot has changed in that period of time. So we're not going to let it go that long again before we update. But again, thanks to everybody who provided the technical knowledge to us, and then of course thanks to my team that, you know, did the hard work to put it together with the instructor notes. One thing I will say is slide number 1 talks a lot about comfort level of the instructor. I don't know that we want every single instructor in the auxiliary to present this. We make a note in there that if you're comfortable with it and you have some knowledge about it, go for it. But we're not saying you have to be an AUXPAD person to utilize this. We designed it so any instructor could do it. But just like everything else in the auxiliary, if our members aren't comfortable with something, they're probably not going to do it. But you know, that disclaimer is in there that we want to be sure that our instructors are comfortable delivering this. So that's it from me.
Thank you, Dave. And, you know, I think one thing that we can offer in the AUXPAD program is we're happy to take people on the water and get them a little bit of experience and comfort dealing with these issues. So I think that you don't have to become an AUXPAD operator to learn, you know.
Excellent. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Nan Ellen. Truly appreciate your input in today's conversation. Next slide, please. So one of our leaders is in public education is Sue Lander. She's in the 9th District Eastern. She's up in Flotilla 42, Rochester, New York. She's been very active with the paddlecraft program, and bottom left-hand corner in that red square, she's been doing a lot of public education up there. She serves as Flotilla 42's public education coordinator. She scheduled a lot of vessel safety check for paddlecraft, but she's also done a lot of on-the-water patrols and safety events for local swim events. The top picture in the center, she does a lot of paddle patrols for swimming events, swim regattas out there. She's also key in doing a big coordination in a big paddlecraft event, as shown as picture on the right and the bottom center. On the right, you can see all the boats, all the kayaks that she had involved in this paddling event last year. And in the middle center, you can see that it was such an effort that the goal side had to I don't know, transport their kayaks to the beginning of the event in order for them to participate. So that's a wonderful event that was run by Sue Lander, and hopefully we'll mirror that or duplicate that event sometime down here in the DC area. Next slide, please. Paddlecraft Ashore. You have an opportunity to earn your RBS device. As it says on the slide, the auxiliary recognizes extraordinary efforts of auxiliarists who consistently provide strong support of the RBS programs. And it's done on a point basis. You have to earn 120 points each year for 2 consecutive years. And what you need to do is take a look at the vessel exams, 1 point per inspection, program visitation, 1 point per visit, and so on, as explains on the screen. But it's easy to do. It's something that if you want to get a device, hang on your uniform, be proud of. I challenge you to strive for this recognition and move forward with it. Next slide, please. One of the other big key components of the AUXPAD program is developing partnerships with local communities, regional and state entities, and well-known industry organizations. This is yours truly, 5th District Southern. I work for the last couple of years quite closely with the Sea Scouts. In the picture on the left, Guy Campbell and I, we've stood up a tent at the Safety at Sea program in Curtis Bay near Baltimore, Maryland. This is an all-day event on a Saturday, and every half an hour they rotate a team of Sea Scouts that come into the program. So throughout the day, we've interacted with 100 Sea Scouts and their adult support throughout the day, and we talk about all the things that you would expect us to talk about. Paddlecraft safety, wearing a life jacket, and we actually, the key thing we do is we use the Sea Scouts as the demonstrators. We have them do live onshore demonstrations of rescues, assisted rescues. We position the boats so they get an idea of how they put the paddle float, where the wet one should be, and we walk them through it. It's a pretty quick moving event in the 30 minutes that we have time for. Next slide, please. Another thing about the partnerships that Roland McDevitt is shown here, and the host of tonight's conversation, he's in 5th District Southern, Flotilla 1607 down in the Outer Banks, North Carolina. He's created a kayak safety video with Kitty Hawk kites. If you Google kayaking safely in the Outer Banks, you will find this video on YouTube, and he gives 10 safety tips for paddling safely on the Outer Banks. It runs about 4.5 minutes, and the 10 tips include, of course, wearing your life jacket, butting up so you don't paddle alone. That's one of the things we emphasize, is you don't paddle alone, about bringing your phone in a waterproof pouch, knowing your environment. Those are just some of the tips that he covers. Next slide, please. Also creating partnerships is Julie Carey in Missouri, in 8th District Western. She's in Flotilla 52, Springfield, Missouri. She partners closely with the American Canoe Association. If you YouTube the ACA's Instructor of the Month, you will find that Julie Carey was the ACA's Instructor of the Month for October 2022. Julie teaches members, of course, of the Coast Guard about the new auxiliary AUXPAD program, but she can also be found on the Ozark National Scenic Riverways, assisting with the National Park Service, the Ozark Riverways Foundation, and she's also paddling at the James River Basin Partnership and Friends of the Caw. So those are all partnerships that we deal with when we do the AUXPAD program. Next slide, please. Quick run about the resources that we provide with the AUXPAD. We talked about the Paddler's Guide to Safety, which is now becoming available, but there are also presentation decks that we put together that Mike Morosis and Mike Maloney and Roland McDevitt put together. In the upper right-hand corner, you see the starting page of the paddlecraft vessel safety PowerPoint presentation. It provides the whys, the whats, the hows. It's a great presentation to go by. We also have included something called the practice standards. It's a guideline to follow that folks that are doing AUXPAD program. It talks about the protocols, the procedures, and techniques. And then the final thing is we put together a bunch of talking points like the vessel safety check. It talks about the legal requirements. It talks about open water recommendations and other topics such as water immersion, trip planning, and training. So that's what the AUXPAD Ashore program is all about. Unless there's questions about the Ashore component, I'd like to turn the floor back over to Roland so we can introduce the next speaker.
So I'm going to turn it over to Todd, and Todd, you can walk us through the Afloat program, if you would.
Well, thanks, everybody. My name is Todd Wilkinson. As Roland mentioned earlier, I'm a paddler on the inland rivers of the United States, out in 8 western rivers. My home flotilla is Flotilla 5-2, Springfield, Missouri, also Julie's flotilla. And I've been involved in the AUXPAD program since 2016. I've only been a paddler since 2017, and I currently work for a watershed conservation nonprofit in my full-time job, the James River Basin Partnership. So you can see there's a lot about partnership and networking, not only in the Ashore component of AUXPAD, but also in the Afloat component as well. And as Joey mentioned earlier, with a lot of the activities that Ashore covers, either vessel safety checks or public affairs, ComRel, almost anybody in a flotilla in the auxiliary can participate in that. Those missions are really available to any flotilla, including a number of flotillas, divisions, and districts where AUXPAD Afloat may not be up and running yet. But it's really a building block in many ways. AUXPAD Afloat is that next step up from AUXPAD Ashore. And as both Roland and Joey hinted about as well, one of the best ways to really get that knowledge, skills, and abilities, as we used to say in National Park Service, I was an MPS ranger in a former life, is to build that credibility by getting on the water. And that's really what AUXPAD Afloat does. It allows you to build skills through AUXPAD academies and training. It does create a strong sense of community, not only within the auxiliary, but also without as well. You're going to be networking with paddling clubs, with state and federal agencies, with local nonprofits, and with the public as well. And as we all well know, since the pandemic in 2020, recreational boating, especially paddlecraft, human-powered craft, are just increasing every year. The ability to buy these boats, to get out on the water, and to experience things without spending a lot of money. Although those of us that are gearheads will say that that's kind of a myth sometimes. This really does allow more people access to the water. And so we're going to be right alongside them, literally in kayaks, to help guide and to be there as a presence in a lot of areas where people aren't used to seeing the Coast Guard. So a lot of internal rewards as well. It's a great feeling to get your qualification as an AUXPAD operator. And then if you're an operator qualifier like myself, to be able to complete that level 2 instructor, either as a coastal kayaker, as a river kayaker, my river kayaking instructor class back in 2019, I think was one of the greatest experiences in my life. And that's no hyperbole in saying that. It really challenged me mentally and physically. And I hear a lot of people talking about that as they get involved in AUXPAD Afloat. Next slide. So different opportunities really for time on the water. That's really the best way to gain that experience. Sue Lander's experience in New York that Joey mentioned there is depicted on the left. One from our home waters. Last September, we conducted an AUXPAD Academy as part of 8 Western Rivers D-Train, and that was held in North Kansas City, Missouri. Julie was able to locate Smithville Lake and a marina there on Smithville Lake that was very cooperative in allowing us to set up some training opportunities for shipmates that may otherwise not have been able to experience AUXPAD Afloat. You can see the very distinctive uniforms that Roland was mentioned there that Julie, myself, and our district coordinator, Daryl Kerr, are all wearing. So it does blend into the paddling community, but it also does stand out not only for a safety aspect, but again, also showing the Coast Guard's presence. And I think a lot of civilian paddlers are really impressed to see that the Coast Guard is putting so much emphasis on paddling and that we are getting out of our comfort zone. Studies have shown that a lot of paddlers do not view themselves as boaters. So when paddlers do see more traditional surface operations in the auxiliary, I think there tends to be a little bit of a disconnect. That's for power boaters, that's for bass boaters. But to see this new mixture of traditional surface operations and public affairs, and that's really what AUXPAD Afloat is, I think they're impressed by that. And that does help achieve those objectives that the Coast Guard has established. The stats don't lie. The numbers are increasing, and unfortunately, the injuries and fatalities are increasing to a degree as well. Next slide. The skills that you're going to learn in an AUXPAD Academy, and we have at least 8 AUXPAD Academies scheduled so far this year. We have a number on the East Coast. We have at least 2 here in the Midwest. We're hoping to hear of more AUXPAD Academies as the year progresses, but generally a 2 to 3 day event. There will be a little bit of classroom time, dryland basics, but most of your time is going to be spent on the water, be through a training float or experiencing self-rescue skills, participating in rescues of fellow classmates, learning how to interpret and talk to the general public. If you're an ACA instructor, that's a major component of that class, being able to teach to different types of learning styles. We have to do that with our members as well. Some members are pretty much hands-on, others need a little bit more assistance in that regard. And so being flexible, I think that's really one of the keys of being an AUXPAD operator, because you never know what situation is going to be presented. Picture on the left is from one of our academies at La Crosse, Wisconsin, last July. That was a 2-day trip that Julie, Daryl, and myself made up to La Crosse, about 10 hours. And so we strapped our kayaks onto vehicles and headed north. It was a great 2 days with a lot of information and training, including a 5-mile float down the Black River, which is a tributary of the Mississippi River. And we are hoping that the newly qualified 15 operators in divisions 2 and 11 of 8 Western Rivers are going to be starting to conduct their own AUXPAD operations in Minnesota and Wisconsin this summer. The photo on the right shows some of those self-rescue drills that are required to be an AUXPAD operator. Literally, you see an auxiliarist hitching a ride on the bow of a kayak. I have a great shot of Daryl Kerr doing a similar thing at Smithville Lake. For those of you who are instructors, especially river instructors, you may be familiar with terms like the hand of God and wet exits. Very intimidating when you first hear about them. And I know I spent a couple of sleepless hours before my self-rescue skills portion of my class. But once you complete that training and you see that you're able to meet that challenge, again, it's very rewarding. And those are skills that can benefit you when you're on the water. We do face risks when we get out on the water. And so those are things that we want to have in our tool bag. Next slide, please. One of the things that we really emphasize are local conditions. And Roland mentioned this earlier when he introduced me, but I am an Ozarks river rat. And so river rats operate in a little different AOR than our coastal shipmates, and that's fine. We want to learn those different skills and abilities. Where we operate on the Current and Jacks Fork River of South Central Missouri, there are certain conditions which coastal kayakers may not be familiar. So, for example, the National Park Service has developed the ABCs of river safety. This is a major talking point that we mention both ashore and afloat whenever we're out. Of course, we want people to always wear their PFD. The analogy we use is that a life jacket works just like a seatbelt. It only works when it's worn. And in most emergencies, there's not going to be time to put that life jacket on. If folks do go in the water, and there's an old paddler saying about we're all between swims, and that includes us as AUXPAD operators, we want to teach people defensive swimming maneuvers. And the most common one, of course, is bottom down, feet up. So if folks do go out of their kayak or their canoe, if they're wearing their life jacket, to flip over on their back, to try to put their bottom in the water, throw their arms out and float to shore. On a river in Missouri, that's not going to be as far of a distance as we would find in a coastal area. but especially when you're dealing with a current, like on the current river, that's going to assist them. We frequently hear stories of folks that are lost paddling. They stand up or push down, stand up, push down, stand up, push down. And in many cases, folks are getting their feet caught, foot entrapment. The ranger who came up with this particular message always said no one died from butt entrapment on the current river. And it certainly is something to think about, that again, those are skills that anybody really needs to have when they're on the river. Here in Missouri, we have a particular challenge called root wads. Some folks call them strainers. And a root wad essentially is a fallen tree thanks to erosion from the current of a stream that is now in the middle of the channel. And of course, the temptation that many people have is to look straight at the root wad, trying to avoid it, which we know is not going to work. When they do butt up against the root wad, they take their paddle trying to push off and only end up pushing more water in their boat. What we really try to encourage folks is to climb the root wad, to let your boat go, to let your gear go. We'll have the garage sail downstream. Gear and boats can be recovered. The paddler cannot. So those again are skills that once those paddlers have the knowledge, they can not only be better prepared when they hit the water, but they can also help us educate the general public as well. And the picture on the right, again, our class at La Crosse, Wisconsin, doing guided paddle floats down the Black River. Really great way to do skill set. And also we do a number of skills floats with our members where we're not actually under orders on patrol, but it's a way to have a good day on the water. It's fellowship, but it's also training as well. Next slide, please. And of course, building community. It certainly was a great way to build some camaraderie and esprit de corps with those auxiliarists last year in Smithville and then also in La Crosse, Wisconsin. And I think, again, there were some friendships that were made out of that. Fellowship is a cornerstone of the auxiliary. A flotilla or division paddle is a great way to build that fellowship as well, and to train for AUXPAD too. And anything that really gets us out of our comfort zone. And as was mentioned earlier with the public education classes, you know, if you're not comfortable with paddlecraft, getting on the water and learning these experiences will help you be able to talk to the general public. It can be intimidating. The paddling community can be somewhat insular to a degree. The paddling clubs are a great resource to network with as well, and develop those relationships and potentially find recruits. We've already had a number of paddlers, including the ranger that came up with the ABCs of river paddling, who is now an auxiliarist who is finalizing his AUXPAD operator qualifier this spring. So within the month, he'll actually be one of our newest operator qualifiers. He brings years worth of experience as an ACA instructor and a national park ranger to the auxiliary. So we're really fortunate in that regard. Next slide. ACA skills training, if you've taken one of the skills assessments, the level 2 skills assessments, either coaster or kayaker or river kayaking, it has a definite agenda and what you will train on, from, again, dry land basics to rescue techniques to how to properly carry a kayak, how to strap a kayak to your car. That's one thing in the picture that earlier of Julie, where Julie was showing how to properly strap a kayak onto your vehicle to avoid that kayak from falling off while you're transporting it to the river or lake. That does happen. And again, that's something that a lot of folks may not be aware of, that there's a right way and a wrong way to do that. Just increasing general knowledge of paddlecraft itself. Again, good for all three of those communities, really. It gets us out on the water. And something to point out, with the AUXPAD handbook, an AUXPAD afloat patrol can go out with a partnering agency. So at Ozark National Scenic Riverways, the MPS actually has a program called River Rovers, where volunteers and rangers go out on patrols similar to what we're doing with AUXPAD afloat. And we actually have some plans to be able to go out with MPS employees and volunteers and show the flag. MPS loves to have Coast Guard personnel on the river because, number one, it increases their interpretive ability for paddlecraft and recreational boating safety. And also, too, it's a force multiplier for their rangers. If anyone knows anything about MPS, just like the Coast Guard, budgets can be a challenge, and they don't always have a ranger that can cover a river access or a gravel bar. And now you have Coast Guard auxiliarists that can assist MPS rangers in getting a message out. Park Service really can't say enough good things about that. And we have one really good relationship with Ozark National Scenic Riverways, Buffalo National River in Arkansas. There's been some discussion of Chattahoochee National Riverway in Georgia, and now the Great Smokies too. Andrea White with the ACA has been working with both of those national parks. So visit with those state or national or local parks around you. Like Joey said, get your PA booths there and start talking to them. And you may have some natural partnerships for AUXPAD Afloat when your mission stands up. Next slide. We do have a number of online seminars. We can provide you a schedule with that, including the seminar that Joey mentioned earlier about paddlecraft BSC. This technically, I'm always happy to speak to a flotilla or a division or even a district if there's any sorts of question. In fact, our AUXPAD qualifiers here in 8 Western are actually in discussion right now to potentially go to 9 up in Western Michigan to assist with some training as well. So that's kind of exciting. And again, some great networking, fellowship, getting able to travel. Attending an AUXPAD Academy in person, even if you have to travel a bit of distance, again, a great rewarding experience. It challenges you mentally and physically and really builds up those skills that allows you to be the subject matter expert to the general public, as well as expanding, excuse me, my allergies are horrible this week, expanding your VSC skills. And like Joey mentioned, we really want paddlecraft VSCs to be a conversation. All of our VSCs really should be that, but with paddlecraft in particular, we want that to be something where we can have that paddler come away with knowledge they may not be aware of, which potentially could save their life the next time that they go out. Again, come and paddle with us. I think all of us extend that invitation. Trainees are always welcome. We'll get you out on the water. We'll show you how much fun it is. We're getting ready to take our OTO from 8 Western Rivers out this July on the Current River, and we're really excited about that because the Gold Side really doesn't have an AUXPAD component, and a lot of coasties may not be as familiar with paddlecraft unless they do it personally, as a lot of our folks are. So it's an area for us to really shine. And as an old public affairs specialist since 2015 with the auxiliary, we have to sell ourselves. That's really our number one customer, even over the boating public, is the Coast Guard, to sell ourselves as a valuable asset and a force multiplier. So don't hesitate to reach out to those Gold Side coasties and include them. Let them see what you're doing, be it afloat or ashore. Next slide, please. Roland, I'll turn it back over to you.
So we are starting to get some of our content up on the national website. This is the Recreational Boating Safety Outreach website. If you go to directorates and do the drop down from that, you'll see Recreational Boating Safety Outreach. That'll take you to this page. There's a paddlecraft tile, and that'll take you to this tile, which is AUXPAD, and you'll see a number of resources in there, including a calendar of events that includes these Zoom seminars and recordings for these Zoom seminars. So we're going to be making a lot of improvements to the website, but even now there's good information up there that you should be looking at. You can also, if you just Google Outer Banks Flotilla, that will take you to my local 054-1607 website. And we have a lot of resources there, training videos and information on how to get ready for AUXPAD Afloat. So we do have some content out there. It's a little bit hidden at this point, but it's out there, and it's going to be more available soon. We've been talking about partnerships with the ACA. One of the great new things that's happening there is they have this regional affiliated clubs council. And that is a new part of ACA that's focused on getting the state directors involved with activities in each state. Here in North Carolina, we're working together with the state director and the state parks to put on skills training in 12 different state parks on May the 20th this year. So we're doing level 1 classes for 15 people in each of 12 parks. And we're going to be promoting that through local media. We're going to be taking video and photographs when we do that so that we can let people know what we're doing. And I think it's really powerful. And this, again, is coming out of Andrea White's work originally in Tennessee. And I think she's just done a great job of creating a template that we can use in other states. We also have 4 of our AUXPAD people are state directors now for the ACA. So we're infiltrating the ACA in a very important way. So this slide was from something we did earlier in the week. We did a presentation for the Women's Leadership Initiative, and we took a look at not only how many paddlecraft operators and qualifiers we have, but how many women we have. And we are striving to improve these numbers, but I think we're doing better than many programs in the Coast Guard and in the auxiliary. 14 of our 53 paddlecraft operators are women. These are all people with level 2 ACA skills, as well as additional skills required to be an operator. And 6 of our 16 AUXPAD qualifiers are women. And these are at least level 2 ACA instructors. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for people to lead in this program. We're growing rapidly, and we really do need people to step up and play a leadership role. So that takes us to discussion. This is actually a picture of dinner at the end of the day at AUXPAD Academy, North Carolina. So Heather here is one of our stars. She is originally a paddlecraft operator, and now she's working on her American Canoe Association instructor qualifications. We've got a number of folks in here that are instructors and paddlecraft operators, but it is a very welcoming community, and a lot of opportunity for a good time and for doing something meaningful to promote safety. So,
Roland, if I may.
Yes, Todd.
I was just going to volunteer to play a monitor here and read off some of the questions for you that are come up in chat.
Okay, excellent.
So first question from Jean Trapini, and I hope I pronounced that right. Are you aware of anyone in the AUX going to paddling trade shows? I am aware of a flotilla in Wisconsin that did attend Canoecopia, which is one of the largest paddling trade shows in the country this year. I wasn't able to make contact with them, but I am personally hoping to attend Canoecopia on behalf of AUXPAD in 2024. Number one, because I love Wisconsin. Number two, because I've never been to Canoecopia. But number three, what a great recruiting ground and way to get the message out about the program. I mean, anybody that's in the paddling community ends up at Canoecopia at some point. So hopefully we'll be able to get some presence up there.
So I see
Sorry.
Andrea White is online here with us. Andrea, do you want to? I see in the chat you've put the link to the state directors, which is a valuable resource. Do you want to say a few words about kind of what you've been up to?
Oh, you guys are doing a great job. I don't feel like I need to say anymore.
Okay.
I will just say that it's a combined effort. This infiltration goes both ways, and it's all by design. I love it when a plan comes together.
Showing your age.
Well, thank you for what you've done. I think you've really been what you've done here in North Carolina. I think, we'll know on May 20th how well we did, but it sure looks like it's going to be a great event.
Well, guys, just to give you the big picture, we started in Tennessee last year, and we partnered, ACA Tennessee partnered with Tennessee State Parks and did 12 kayaking one-on-one classes on the Saturday before Memorial Day weekend to kick off National Safe Boating Week. In that day, we trained 170 people in one day statewide. We had 57 volunteers. from 12 different organizations that all pulled together to make that happen. So my name gets associated with it, but I want you to think of those 57 volunteers, because those are the people who made it happen. We got 23 news stories, so we took advantage of National Safe Boating Week to really amplify that message about water safety and the value of a day of training. We got several video testimonials about how much fun they had and what great skills they learned. And we targeted more than 38,000 conservatively self-identified Tennessee paddlers on social media, with all of our various posts from the 12 parks. So this year, what we're doing, it's a 2-state partnership. We've got 13 locations in Tennessee. That's also going to include an adaptive paddling location with adaptive equipment and adaptive instructors. And then in North Carolina, I believe we landed on 11 locations, Roland. Yep. So that will be 24 simultaneous kayaking 101 classes taught by ACA instructors and volunteers from 35 organizations. Coast Guard Auxiliary has been a key partner in the North Carolina effort this year. We don't have as many AUXPAD in Tennessee, but we're working on that. And as Robin Pope told me a couple of nights ago, if we have doubled in 1 year, if we double again next year, that means 4 states. So,
Andrea, one thing that really impresses me, I think it's wonderful to teach 170 people in one day, but we're also connecting our state parks people and our auxiliary people and our ACA people in a way that wasn't happening before. And I think
that's absolutely right. We're making connections across all the pockets of the paddling community.
Well, in a friendly amendment to that, there's actually a 3rd state that's been offering those classes for at least 3 years, and that's Missouri. The National Park Service at Ozark National Scenic Riverways, the auxiliary and ACA have been assisting with their intro classes since at least 2020. So it's 3 states. So we're tripling now.
There you go. There you go. I've got a phone call into Georgia to see if they want to get a park in just so that we can make it a National Safe Boating Week even add another state to the story.
Well, that's awesome. We have some more questions here. We had a question. I don't think we answered this one, about asking about insurance for events like Sue Landers and Julie. If we're on patrol, we're covered under the liability protection of the Coast Guard Auxiliary. There are times when we're teaching, not as auxiliaries, but as ACA instructors. And for those events, like when I teach for Kitty Hawk Kites or with this North Carolina partnership, that's going to be ACA insurance. But so we have a couple of different ways of doing it, depending on whether we're under orders or not.
And then in answer to the next question about ACA certified instructors assisting other paddlers, even if the paddlers were not part of the group. We actually had that happen to us a couple of summers ago, where we were assisting an MPS Intro to Paddling class on the Upper Current. We had just finished our dry land basics, and we had our class down at the put in and on a gravel bar. And as we were getting ready to get folks in their kayaks and get underway, we actually had a kayak about 50 yards downstream that, by the way, was overloaded with 4 coolers stacked on top of each other. It was a fishing kayak set on top. They had it bungee cord, all 4 coolers there on its stern, overturned. And so Julie's kayak was the closest, and she actually threw her throw bag and her paddle to one of the park rangers, who hopped in, and he's also an ACA level 2 instructor, hopped in her kayak and paddled down to assist. So we've had several rescues take place during those classes. Now, again, we're usually out operating as ACA instructors, but I've known a couple of park rangers that have been involved with some pretty serious rescues by people that were in our class, but had got caught in a root blot. I can think of one in particular that involved several of us trying to help a lady that was literally stuck on a root blot.
We had a rescue down in the Wilmington area too. It was a stand-up paddleboarder that got separated from the paddleboard, and one of our patrol got them to shore successfully. Margaret has a question about whether there's a 5 North AUXPAD Academy planned. We don't have one planned for 5 North, but you're more than welcome to come down to 5 South if you want to get if you want to participate in what we're doing. And sometimes that's a good way to just learn about the program and meet the other people that are doing it, so that you can go back and help get things going in your district. Are there other questions that anybody has?
May I ask just a few questions? I'm very interested in this. I'm a member of a kayak club. I've recently started doing kayaking, a little bit of whitewater and, mostly lakes. I'm wondering, do you train on all types of water, or is just specific training? Would it be geared towards the environments we would see? I happen to be in an area that has a lot of lakes and 2 rivers.
So the program got started here on the East Coast, and it got started with a very heavy bias towards coastal kayaking. And our guidelines, our patrol standards, basically are 15 knots or less of wind and 1 foot of waves. But it's a little different world when you get on rivers and inland waters, and we are very much aware of that, and we're really committed to getting the program going more on inland waters. So we're basically adapting kind of ACA river kayaking standards. And Todd, maybe you could speak to that.
Yeah, we're generally going to be staying away from the whitewater streams. So a class 3 river and above, we're not going to really be putting anybody on that. A level 2 and below, essentially. So flat water paddling to a mild current. So usually on the current river, I'm trying to think what the average speed of the river is, and I'm drawing a blank right now, but it's a fairly easy river for most folks to challenge or to paddle. Not a lot of technical challenges per se. There can always be some issues with strainers and root wads, but for the most part, we're going to be staying away from the whitewater streams.
May I also ask, is the Academy an opportunity for someone like myself who may not be able to attain certification at this point, but has an interest in just I've most of the skills you presented I've already learned, but I'd like to understand better what your expectations are of a person joining the Academy as a trainee.
So I would say in terms of physical requirements, you can look at the ACA level 2 for our academies here on the East Coast, the coastal kayaking kind of prerequisites that they have listed for ACA level 2 classes. But I'm seeing a real opportunity here to invite people that are not necessarily even going to go on the water. Some of the training we're doing is ashore, and I'm inviting folks from our local flotilla to come out and learn how to do vessel exams, to observe some of the rescues on shore, some of those basic skills, so that they can learn some of these things and really build their skills, even if they're not planning to go on the water.
And I would just add, on that, I mean, practice. The paddlers I know, the longtime paddlers, say, even though they've had years of paddling experience, they're out paddling all the time. They never miss an opportunity to refresh those skills. Yeah. And that's something I wish I had more time. I'm fortunate in the fact that I work in a field where I get paid to kayak, but I don't get paid to kayak enough. And so trying to get out there as much as I can, planning to go this weekend, the weather's looking good. It's been a while, and I'm rusty and I'm feeling it. And I really just can't stress that enough. And that's where those skills floats come in, to get your members out on the water, if nothing else, is networking and fellowship. Yeah. And you'll start seeing people practicing. That's really the coolest part. They're practicing strokes, they're practicing sweeps, they're practicing everything that they've been taught in those skills courses, and they're showing each other how to do it. That's, I think, one of the most rewarding things you'll see.
I think in terms of building community too, that things like assisted rescues and just kind of helping people out in that learning environment is a very supportive experience. And you really do come away feeling like you know people in a way that you didn't know them before.
They're observing. I mean, one of the stories we always tell is that we went on a skills float. We were not in AUXPAD uniform, but we had a lot of our gear, and we were floating from Acres to Pull Tide on the upper current. And we actually had a group of paddlers that we passed by on a gravel bar, and we heard one of them say very loudly, "Look at the professional paddlers." And we kind of did a double take. Who are they talking about? Oh, they're talking about us. And so the general public sees, they see you training, they see you out there working on your rescue skills, and they'll stop and ask. Great public affairs opportunity. And you'll be amazed at what conversations will pop up.
We had Gene asked the question about pool sessions in the winter. I have not done those in the auxiliary. Joey, I think, had an opportunity. I'm not sure if it actually happened, but some of these opportunities are outside the auxiliary, so you may want to do it in the context of ACA insurance. But I don't think there's any reason you couldn't do pool training in the auxiliary if you had a group of people that were auxiliarists that were qualified to go to training, and seems like you could have a training mission in the pool. I'm not sure there's any reason you couldn't do that.
Yeah. Our club starts training in the pool in January.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. And, you know, another aspect of that, I always think, you know, just testing your cold weather equipment, things like that, you know, your dry suits, things like that. Those are things that don't get done enough, I think.
Or you can just come down to Florida.
I've been in pretty cold water in Florida too. Okay. So I had a question about the West Coast. We've got some folks up in District 13 in the Northwest that are working to get something started. I don't think it's off the ground yet. We've got some interest in California, but if you're in a district that doesn't have the program going, let's talk about it and see if there's some opportunity to for you to play a leadership role to get it started. And don't forget, AUXPAD Ashore is really probably the most productive part of what we do. That's where we're going to be talking to people. So we don't have to start with AUXPAD on the water. We can start with AUXPAD Ashore. So Joey's put the link here for the shirts, if anybody wants to get them.
Roland, if you don't mind, I'll harken back to Margaret's question about training real quick, if that's okay.
Okay.
I won't speak to the academies. That's not my place to speak to. But what I will say, if I'm looking at my crystal ball, I think that you are going to start seeing more opportunities in Coast Guard Auxiliary to get more stair steps of incremental training leading up to instructor certification. And you may choose at any point along the way that that's enough for you, right? But you may also find that it comes to you quite easily and that you're ready for the next level. And it can be a real confidence booster to be able to do some of those stair steps of opportunities along the way.
Yeah.
I have a level 4 instructor who has told me he would include me in level 1 training.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if I were to accomplish that on my own, how that would work into this program.
Very easily.
Yeah,
I would have to demonstrate my abilities though for the group, or is it just a given that I would have the skill set?
So if you get signed off for ACA skills by an ACA instructor, you can take that to an AUXPAD qualifier and have it accepted. So that's, in fact, when we started, we pretty much were all getting trained by ACA instructors. We didn't have any instructors in the auxiliary. So, I mean, that's really the origins of the program.
So I would love to come down to one of these academies, but right now it might be prohibitive because I have 2 jobs and, like everybody, I'm busy. So if I could demonstrate those skills, or because many of the things I've learned already, and I am connected to a club, I'm wondering how I might be able to accomplish what the academy would provide outside of that experience.
So, Margaret, where are you located?
Pennsylvania.
So your level 4 instructor friend is probably a coastal kayaking instructor.
Well, he does a lot of instruction on the lake, so I'm sure that he has quite an extensive amount of whitewater experience, and I'm not certain about coastal. There are 3 basic classes that the club gives: a beginner wreck boat class, a whitewater class that progresses into an intermediate class, and they do some open water coastal, ocean kayaking, but I haven't pursued that yet.
Okay. So tell your friend that anything up to and including a level 2 instructor certification will be an equal transfer. You can take that paperwork straight into the Coast Guard Auxiliary. So if they want to give you skills assessments at the level 1 or level 2, or if he wants to give you a paddle sport safety facilitator certification, or if he gets you with an IT and you even get an instructor certification at level 1 or level 2, those are the kinds of keywords that you would want to ask him about and see how much you can get done on your own.
Okay, terrific.
And on the auxiliary side, I would add that it's good to visit with your district AUXPAD coordinator and or your OTO, your operations training officer on the gold side, because each district may have little nuances in policy. Like I know in 8 Western Rivers, our operator qualifiers are L2 instructors, but there is a PQS on the active duty or on the auxiliary side, and that the operator qualifier does need to see the skills and initial those. So it's not a direct transfer. You're still probably going to need to go out with a qualifier, just like we do in traditional surface operations with a QE that goes out and checks off coxswain and crew. We're going to need to see those, but just like a vessel safety check sticker says that you've had the experience, the training, the ACA qualification is going to lead into that.
How would I identify the appropriate people in 5NR?
So I think
you're
in 5 North, we don't have everything up and running. I think it's a embryonic stage right now, I'd say. So
yeah, I met someone at D-Train last year that was pursuing something related to this. So
I've talked to 2 or 3 people that are interested in pursuing it, and there's some pretty good talent there, but it's not there's no formal program yet.
Okay, well, I'm steps away from it, but I may reach out to somebody on the call here at some point. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think we're at 8:14, and I think that's probably a pretty good point to wrap it up. I really appreciate everybody making time for us tonight. You're welcome to reach out to us. I think Roland McDevitt at gmail.com, roland.mcdevitt@gmail.com for me. You can also find us in aux directory, but let us know if you want to follow up. We can try to put you in touch with some people that will help you take some next steps. But I think there's a lot happening now in the program, and it's a good time to get involved. So
Perfect.
Encourage you to do that. Thank you.
Excellent presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, great job. I enjoyed it.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Andrea, for joining us.
Hey,
And then
all the family, man.
Good night, everybody. Paddle on.
Yep. Good night.
Good night.
I'll see you tomorrow, Joey.
Okay, we'll see you tomorrow.
Okay.
Bye-bye now.